this place? We are smack bang in the middle of the Kimberley, living on our 10-metre sailboat. It's unbloody real! A pristine wilderness area in Australia's isolated northwest. While this area is famous for its breathtaking beauty, it is also infamous for its monstrous tidal range, which results in vicious tidal waters that have been the catalyst for many sailors' demise. Today, we face a unique challenge. We've got to round Cape Londonderry. Not only is this cape Western Australia's northernmost point, but here at the tip of this cape, two immense tidal flows clash, creating an unruly sea. This is a passage where timing is everything. Luckily today, it looks like the conditions are just right. We really want this day because it's the nicest day until it starts blowing up over the weekend, and we need to get around this like notorious cape. We've just done a running tour of the Lost City, and after getting a little bit disorientated,
maybe now's a good time to check our track down.
We've found our way back to the tender and we're heading home to Nakama, our vintage but sturdy stallion of a vessel, which is anchored right out the front of this waterfall. And while having access to a freshwater shower is extremely luxurious and hard to leave, we've got to get her out of this lagoon with the high water and catch the ebb tide towards the cape.
That's it for Glaucomas Bay.
Yeah, just following our track back out. It's always more relaxing leaving than it is coming in.
We've done it once before.
Yeah.
I think my favourite feature on chart plotters is the track. So you know how much tide you had coming in, how much depth was under you, and if you follow your little pink line back out, should be the same. Unless there's the famous Kimberley shifting rocks, or just like a general sandbank movement. These things happen, especially the shifting rocks up here.
Just while rolling through.
Yeah.
For those of you that are new here, this isn't just your leisurely sail, although it is a good day for it.
Perfect conditions this morning to wet a line. Good day for a motor too. Love a motor. I love a good motor.
It's all part of a bigger picture. We're attempting to circumnavigate Australia. So far, we have almost covered half of the country, and we're hoping to complete the majority of the West Australian coast this season, before heading into the Southern Ocean. And to make matters even more interesting, we're also trying to complete our degrees at the same time. Now I have to jump into a lecture. So if this is the kind of chaos you're into, consider subscribing. Wind and waves, sound. What a morning so far. Just absolutely stunning. Beautiful sunny morning, slowly pottering along. There's absolutely only 3 knots of wind. I was gonna say absolutely not a breath of wind, but yeah, we got about 3 knots. You'd think as sailors we'd be chasing some wind. However, today we are more than happy to motor.
I love a motor. I love a good motor.
As wind against strong tides creates unpleasant seas, which we've had the privilege of enjoying in the past. When we're not surfing on one of these waves, we're doing about 1.8 to 2 knots. But here at Cape Londonderry, things can get even more complicated, as you have tide coming from 2 different directions. So we're glad to avoid experiencing this place in a strong breeze.
They're not just any tides either, they're like over 3.5 knots of current each way, so it's like a collision of 7 knots of force. I don't know how that works, but 3.5 knots of current each way, you know, it's going to make for some interesting water. I think the most the weather report today said we could be getting up to in the early afternoon, when we'll be passing that point actually, is about 15 knots. But hopefully it's not enough for it to develop a sea. Like if it had been blowing 15 knots for 3 days leading up to it, then you might already have a bit of a developed sea and it could be a bit more ugly. But hopefully this placid morning will mean it can't get too out of hand. But only time will tell. Some mates have said they've passed through and it's been placid as. Another mate, patron of ours, you bloody legend, said he had like waves the height of 2-metre story buildings coming down on
2-metre story buildings.
2-metre story buildings. All like, well, we were at the marina toilet blocks and he was like roof height. So what's that? Nearly 2-story building. roof of a 1-story building. It's pretty high. That's probably like 4 meters, 5 meter waves. He reckons 6, but I don't know. Like, I won't give it that. I reckon like 4 meter waves. Sorry. It kind of means 6. Next minute we're gonna be in there 6 meter waves. I'm like, he wasn't lying.
So currently we're using the ebb tide to push us northwest, and we're hoping to arrive at the tidal split point around Slackwater, which will then use the flood tide to head southwest towards our destination.
That's the cape.
Another trick for rounding this cape is to stay well away from the shallow water, so we're tracking pretty far offshore to stay outside of the 30-meter depth contour.
There's these strange, really, like there's quite a lot of them, but they're really isolated, really dense patches of just like sand that float on by.
We are literally just cruising through sand, just such sandy water. The sandy water wasn't the only strange phenomenon going on. What I thought was reef. So I thought all the reef would have been submerged around this cape, but I'm pretty sure I can actually see it. Actually slowly began revealing itself as where the two tides met. Clearly identifiable as a line of turbulence in the water. So far so good, but there's this dark line in front of us, and I have a feeling that that's where it splits and the two tides meet. There's definitely something we're about to go through. It's almost like we're crossing a line into a new ocean, as one side is glassy and calm, and the other rough and choppy.
There's been lots of weird and wonderful things so far in the Kimberley. This is just another strange thing. We've never done sailing before. We've never had 3.5 knots tidal flows meeting each other. Look at these waves, they're all over the shore.
It's like a really weird bit of water to go through that you definitely don't want too much wind for. It's crazy, I don't understand it. Gladly, we got our timing and conditions just right, which inevitably made for a pretty uneventful passage. Which is why when the rod started screaming,
Whoa.
whoa,
I need a glove.
we welcomed the change of pace.
You want this? A tea towel?
I think you're on.
I think that's the biggest fish we've ever caught. That was absolutely screaming out just then. It must be getting close. Big.
Oh, what is that?
It's a mackerel.
Oh,
Big Spanish.
no way, babe.
It's a big Spanish.
Oh, what a beast. He's huge.
Well, that's our new PB fish. We were just saying we'd put the line in a few times and we hadn't had much luck, but this will keep us fed for a while.
Can you smell the fish? Can you smell the fish?
Yes! Stoked on this! Absolutely frothing.
Dude, he's massive.
Yeah, he's heavy too.
Oh my god!
That's our new PB. Oh, I wonder what he is. Like kilo-ish.
To get a Spanish mackerel like this on board is pretty awesome. The fillets that come off these things are enormous and will keep the whole crew aboard Nakama going for quite some time. Thank you for your life. I think we'll make a shark very happy.
Yeah, you would.
Didn't really need that today, did we?
Nah. It looks good.
We were expecting to have to motor in the Kimberley, but not to the extent we have been. The other thing we weren't anticipating was the weeks where we saw little sun due to unseasonal weather.
Yeah, it's raining. It's the driest Dry season, you're not meant to even see a cloud.
Meaning without solar and protected from any wind amongst these cliffs, we had to run the engine to charge our batteries, putting our little fuel rations of 210 litres to the test. Another Jerry going in. So far, we have used roughly 40% of our fuel, and while the sun has now come out, the next fuel stop is still over a month away. So when we saw that there was a little campground settlement with four-wheel drive access to a community, we thought we would take this opportunity to do some four-wheel driving, obviously. Oh, and top up our fuel supplies. So this morning we're sailing towards a dreamy little place called Honeymoon Bay. It's only about a 20 nautical mile trip from where we dropped anchor last night, which meant we arrived in no time.
Cruising up on this place, it's quite funny. It's like a slight bit of civilization, but it almost looks like something out of an old country western film, but with African trees on the beach, because there's boabs in the Kimberley. It's a strange thing, but looks really cool. Old like tin sheds. There's quite a few like Forbies here, so it might be a meeting place where the ocean meets the road adventurers, I guess. Could be an interesting little place for an explore, and certainly glad that we can get a lift from here to a petrol station.
Honeymoon Bay is a raw and rustic family-owned campground located within the Columbaroo Mission, the northernmost settlement in Western Australia. This tiny patch of civilization is hundreds of kilometres away from nearby towns, and with roads that look somewhat like this, it's a huge commitment getting out here by car, and is only accessible during the dry season. We almost feel like we had it easier, sailing here and simply dropping anchor right out the front.
Step into frame. We're just really admiring how good Nakama looks out there. And this little shack, all of it. I love everything about this kind of frontier style stuff. Like, I just awesome. No marked campsites here. Everyone's just got little open fires. So much quirkiness in just such like a remote and barren place, and there's beauty in the barrenness. That's what's so cool about it. We're getting a lift from the caretakers or the owners of the campsite to another mission tomorrow where there's a fuel bowser that's open on Saturdays and Wednesdays. Pretty cool. Paying them $100 I'm going to dry set, but it's going to be fun. We'll go out to this random place, but I can't believe the fuel bowser's only open twice a week. But we're getting a lift there. Don't trust strangers unless you need fuel, then trust whoever's offering to drive you. This is awesome.
So when the morning came around, we loaded every empty jerry can we had on board into the tender and waited in anticipation for who was about to rock up.
Yeah, good morning, Joy. Nice to meet you.
Alright, see you soon. Oh, you got the radio?
Correct, yeah.
Alright, give me a call when you're ready.
Yeah.
Bye.
So the lift into town is $100 per person. So I figured just one of us needs to go. I'm going to stay and look after the mothership, and Simon can go and fill up everything for us. So yeah.
So I've set off on what will be one of the most eventful fuel runs of my life. Any apprehension I had around being in a car with a stranger in the wild, wild west has been removed by Joy's joyful aura. I don't know what I was thinking, but my ignorance led me to believe there would be a graded road, but this has become more like bush bashing and some of the wildest four-wheel driving I've personally ever done. But it kind of adds to the brilliance of it all, and I'm stoked to see a whole new area of this vast, barren landscape as we bush bash our way further and further inland and away from the coast. I've been given permission to stand on the roof, but I'm not going to, because that's just a bit far-fetched. But this rock here looks like a dog howling at the moon. But so far this has been a really, 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 really awesome drive. I've been enjoying it. Getting to know Joy has been amazing. What they do out here is just pretty special, and it's kind of fun to get off the boat and go for a bit of a 4B. Approaching the town, the Wild West feel is elevated by the fact there are wild brumbies just cruising the streets. Are they just like brumbies?
Well,
fat too. Maybe they just had a feed.
That one's pretty fat. Yeah. This place is like nowhere else I've ever been before. I made it. Most remote fuel bowser I've ever been to. Well, $3.75 goes on as my PB, my personal best, as the most I've ever paid for a litre of fuel. It's kind of just part of the fun, I guess. How is that? $3.75 a litre. $100 for the lift is a bargain. Joy has just been so exceptional. She's given us a tour, showed us the river.
And the rain
Comes all the way up to
it comes up to the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot of water. I've gone, dropped some stuff off at the dump. We're going to get some water while we're out here. It's just been such a fun time going for a cruise, learning about the area, learning about the land with her. So one of the most fun, expensive fuel runs I've ever done in my life. Going for a little 4B. Who would have thought that we'd get a little four-wheel driving in and now sailing through the Kimberley adventure? I know we've been burning a lot of diesel, but I didn't expect to be doing it in a truck.
Cruising through this land, on the land and via the ocean, we're reminded of just how much empty, vast and untouched space we have here. Australia is only slightly smaller than the United States. However, here live 25 million people, and in the US, 330 million. To put it into perspective, Australia's entire population makes up roughly 65% of the population in the state of California, which gives you an idea of how remote the large majority of the country is. Oh, I just got a radio call. Simon and Joy are back. I'm gonna go meet them on the beach.
We've gained a videographer.
How'd you guys go? Yeah, pretty good.
That's good.
Well, pulling in here wasn't initially on our Kimberley itinerary, but we're certainly glad we were able to top up our fuel rations, taking some future stress off our shoulders as we knew we'd be cutting it close, given the amount of places we intend to explore during our time in the Kimberley.
It also comes.
It even comes with the pool.
No.
Its endless nooks and crannies offer unique experiences around every corner, and we can't wait to get back into it.
Another very crossbaity situation. Worth it for a good swim.
But before we do, Slim's been making some more friends, and after landing that Spanish mackerel, thinks he's a pro fisherman.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, she's slippery. Oh, we're just going to release him. Oh, that was a professional release right there. He did. That's a decent sock. Oh, it's in my hat. It's a jack in the hat. Yeah. Alright, sweet. Nice.
Did we dinner?
Unlucky by 2 centimetres.
Let's see if we weren't good fish.
I know.
Cheers guys, we'll see you next week.